So we're still quite early. It's 7:58. Our live is for 8. Oh, hi. Oh, it's so good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining in. So we're waiting till 8 a.m. 8 p.m. rather. And we'll add. How are you? How are you, Silver? It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. So greetings there. Let me put in the topic for today. Hi. Oh my god. So good to see everyone. So good to see you. Okay, so we have the topic for today. We have, I think, a kid's time. So let me add our guest. Our guest today it's going to be awesome. It's going to be an awesome session. So while we're waiting for our guest, okay, so while we're waiting for our guest, I'm just going to introduce what today is about. So Business Beyond Skills is an initiative of Sassy St. Craft Company dedicated to exploring the core of entrepreneurship and craftsmanship. Our mission is to build excellent minds in the business of crafts, and each month we engage in insightful guests. Last month was awesome with Mrs. Silva and Mrs. Ige, and this month we have Mr. Agboola. So each month we engage with insightful guests on various topics that align with our vision. If you have any suggestions for future discussion, please share them with us for consideration. Today's topic is managing money during an economic downturn. Nigeria is a unique country, as we all know, and I say this with great respect and optimism. Our people, our methods, and our responses to challenges are very distinct. This uniqueness extends to how we conduct businesses and interact with broader economic landscape. While some financial strategies may work for us, for others it would not work for Nigerians, even though they might be as effective in other contexts, and this is due to the unique characteristics of ours. Today we're going to explore practical steps and practical ideas on how to discover ways to achieve our business goals. Whether you're an experienced entrepreneur or just starting out, this session will provide you with the tools and the knowledge to sustain, grow, and build your craft. Please, it is very important for you to pay close attention. It's very, very important for you to take notes, and very, very important to ask questions that you may have during our discussion. Know that we are here for you. We are doing this because of you. So we're going to get started by introducing our guest, who is Mr. Agboola. I'm still waiting on him to join. And Mr. Agboola is a seasoned speaker with a wealth of wisdom in financial matters. He's passionate about money management. He's passionate about money management and shares valuable tips every Monday through his platform, Monday Morning Nuggets. Monday Morning Nuggets. You can always follow him um after this session. Hi, Mr. Agboola. It's good to see you.
Hello.
Thank you
I
so much for joining in today. I'm excited. It's so good to see you. So we're just going to dive into the topic. We've already said the topic for today is managing money during economic downturn, and I've given the introduction on how in Nigeria we're actually going through some sort of economic downturn, and in as much as textbooks are good and we read books and stuff, but sometimes it doesn't relate to our economy. It doesn't relate to our people because we are a unique set of people. And I say that with all respect and due acknowledgement. So quickly, I want to know what you think are the most common financial mistakes businesses and individuals make during an economic downturn. And if you yourself have even gone through such, I would like you to share.
okay. Um, I guess it's nice to meet everybody here. Before we even start, I just want to make sure that everything is okay. So because I can't actually see you, I can see myself, but I can't see you. So I don't know if that's just me.
Yeah, I think it's you. I can see you clearly.
Oh, okay. That's fine. I'll just keep going like that. Yeah, so your question essentially about I guess common financial mistakes and all of that. I guess before we even get right into it, like is let's kind of try and step back a little bit, right? Because when you start talking about managing money in itself, uh, sometimes people don't just even know what exactly it is, right? Like I was having a conversation yesterday night with someone who had come visit, and we're talking about essentially like managing money and all of those things. And it was just like I see there were new things that the person was hearing, which was like regular common stuff, right? So it's like let's first of all kind of go through what exactly money management is because people have different ideas essentially, right? So and typically, I like to start when I'm talking like this. I like to start off with saying that there's a statement by Dave Ramsey, who is an American radio host and is a financial guru and all of those things. And he talks about how you will either learn to manage money, right? So you as a person or you as a business or whatever that is, right? You will either learn to manage money or the lack of it would actually manage you. So you will
Mm,
either learn to manage money, or the lack of that learning, the lack of that ignorance, essentially, will eventually manage you at the end of the day, right? So it just tells you like there's when it talks about money management, there's stuff to talk about, right? And money management in itself, I mean, in a very simple term, is you can say it's essentially how you handle money, right? How you handle your finances. It goes on to talk about especially when you're talking about management of money, you can talk about how you handle your finances, talk about investments, budgeting and savings, right? That everybody knows about savings and all of this. And there's one more that I would also classify as part of money management, which is actually setting your financial goals,
mm,
right? Being able to see yourself in the future, understanding the kind of lifestyle you want to live in the future, and making decisions today regarding how you would live that life in the future is also part of money management, right? So if you can view yourself in the future and see the kind of lifestyle that you have, it informs the kind of decisions that you make today regarding the kind of what you do with your finances, like how do you handle your finances, budgeting, investing, and all of those things, right? So that's a major part that a lot of people don't actually talk about, because most times we only talk about money management in the perspective of today, as today, right? A lot of people don't
yeah.
talk about money management from the perspective of the future, right? Then you now start talking about economic downturn, right? Recession or whatever you might call it, which is essentially when there's really like very low economic activity, there's no money flow, people are not spending money,
Mm,
everything is just down, essentially, right? So it's like,
yeah.
how do you now take money management as a whole of its own with all of these different factions, and then economic downturn, and then you're putting it together to now make a decision, essentially, right? Like, how do
Yeah.
you manage money inside of this thing called
She's
economic downturn?
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, from the question you asked, me personally, so my growing up was interesting because for me, because when people try to ask me, okay, what kind of financial like mistakes have you made and all of that stuff, sometimes I try to think very deep, and sometimes I honestly cannot find because at a very, very younger age, I've been able to, the understanding I had with financing and finances and all of those pieces there, I was able to get quick control of my financing, even from when I was in school, right? So, and that played along as I continue to grow up, right? So, when we talk about financial mistakes, I've been very, very intentional for a very, very long time. So, I cannot honestly just pinpoint and say, hey, this is a financial mistake I made that, ruined my life or whatever it is, right? But
Yeah.
the although what I will talk about is maybe like a financial struggle, right? In the sense of when um many times people that are very, very, very conscious about money and financing and all of those things, sometimes they tend to go the extreme, right? Which is where I can say maybe I have been in a way where okay, now it's an extreme where very are too prudent, you won't spend. So for me, for instance, I wouldn't typically spend money on like I won't spend a lot of money. Like I sometimes I would go back then I would go like quantity over quality, right? I wouldn't want to take money and just go and buy something that would take my money all the way because I wanted to buy something, right? So, but of course, as I got married and all of those things, definitely things have to change. You have to balance things out and all of those things. So, I mean, that would have been like a financial piece because initially I was very, very extreme. Very too intentional about stuff. I remember when some of my friends back then they would be like, "Oh, let's go to the movies, let's do this, let's do that." I'm like, "Sorry, I don't have that in my budget." It's just like every single dollar counts, essentially, or every single naira in the sense of it counts, right? So, which in one way, when you look at it from a perspective, is a good thing. But again, understanding how to balance these things is very important. So, I mean, that's from a personal perspective, right? But then now going into the actual question where you asked about the common kind of mistakes, that individuals make or businesses make, right? I think one of the things is people not just taking the reality of things for it, right? So there is an economic downturn. Sometimes people still like to live in the reality of before, of the past, right? So imagine it like this, right? You've been living a lifestyle, right? You've been living a
Yeah.
lifestyle. Let's say you're living in Lagos, right? You're living a lifestyle, you do this, you do that, you do this. Now there's an economic downturn. What informs you changing that lifestyle? Because that lifestyle you're living is is tied back into your pocket, right? So
Yeah.
if you still need to live a lifestyle, it's always going to be tied back to your pocket. So if there's an economic downturn and you don't see any reason why to that needs to change, you would be affected, right? If you don't understand the realities of what's happening in the market, right? If the market has changed and you are living in oblivion as a business or as an individual, as a family, and you don't readjust to what is the current state of the market, then at that point, that's when you will start realizing down the road that you have, there's mistakes that you'll be making, right? Because you'll be living your life like as if things are still the way they are, right? So that's just one thing, right? So people not psychologically actually having that reality check in their mind, say, hey, this is the different times. I need to kind of readjust, I need to adjust my settings, right? And adjust that lifestyle, to meet up with the current expectations of what the economy is saying. So that's one thing for sure. A second thing is some people necessarily during these times they change their mindset to like you only live once during an
Mm.
economic downturn, right? Where okay, the money that we're having is not even enough in the first place. Now economic downturn is coming. What do you want us to do? At this point, let us just give up and spend
That's
the money.
the
There's
money.
yes, there's really no point. I mean, there's really no point, right?
That's
I
what
mean, you
you
start hearing people say,
man.
we are not taking this money to heaven now. We're not taking this
That's
money. It's not going
our
to die. So let's just spend it and move on, right? So
business.
there's those kind of mindsets that from a that's and this is from a mindset perspective, right? So as a business, as an individual family, right? This is one of the things that people can do that becomes a mistake, right? But when you now start talking generally of financing stuff, right? people just ignoring general financial planning, right? As a business, not revisiting and adjusting your financial expectations, your financial plans, and looking at the different issues that can come up, right, based off of the new economy. That's one mistake. Another mistake is just inadequate revenue in the sense of it, right? Say, for instance, you're just relying on this single revenue that is coming in, right? Which in an economic downturn, it's all it takes is the snap to happen, and that income is gone, right?
True.
So people again, it's still part of not readjusting to the true events that is happening, right? So relying on just that one income and all of that can be dangerous down the road. Now, of course, this can be different for different businesses and all of that, but it can also be dangerous. Then another one is just delaying your decision, essentially, right? As a business, right? Just delaying your decision making generally. Like when you're supposed to take quick actions, you're like, let's look at it, let's see how it goes, And then it gets to a point that maybe the economic downturn peaks and you cannot survive anymore. And at that point, it's already too late for you've not yet built a foundation to come back to, right? So at that point, that becomes a financial mistake because then you didn't make decisions that you're supposed to make on time to make this business survive, right? And then, of course, just the general, so just some of those things, especially are some of the mistakes that businesses in themselves, they can make, right? Not just doing proper planning when it comes to their finances. So that's kind of how I'll answer that one.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions right now based on what you just said.
Okay.
Okay, so you mentioned something about thinking of today versus thinking of the future. So I just want to understand that in terms of the business aspect, because you know that there's this saying that states that um you have to spend money to make money. And you mentioned something about understanding the reality of the market, which is a mindset that can be an error. And you also mentioned inadequate revenue and delaying your decision making. Now, in situations where you already know that this is the revenue I have as a business, and it's not enough, it makes you to delay that decision making. Are you seeing the it makes you delay the decision making? It's not that you're not thinking of the future, you're thinking of the future, but at the same time, how do we balance it? Because it's not because okay, let's use Nigeria for instance. As I said, we are a peculiar nation. And and yes, we know that if you have to buy something in Nigeria, it's best to buy it today. But you
Mm,
also know that if I need to save, I also need to keep money aside for certain things. But in keeping that money, prices are increasing on a constant. How do I manage this back and forth? Because anytime I go to the market, it has increased again. So how do I manage it? How do I balance thinking of today with thinking of the future without getting into trouble?
yes. Yeah, so I mean, like you said, Nigeria is a very unique country when it comes to these things, right? And it takes almost like you have to think twice as fast and twice as everything as any other probably any other country will have to do when it comes to business and how you operate, right? So there's
Yeah.
really no one fast hard rule, essentially, because of how very volatile the country itself is, right? So someone can wake up today and just say something and that's the end, right? So which is not generally how it should happen.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess one of the ways to kind of tackle that one, um, especially in a place like Nigeria, is first of all you have to accept things for the way they are, right? The reality of things is that things are going to be like this, and it's going to take a business, like be a small business owner, right? It's going to take them um, a more harder route where they have to make constant small decisions, not necessarily like an overall big decision, right? Constant small decisions every time. So, for instance, when you said you go to the market, price has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, price has changed doesn't mean that your product needs to stay the same price because the same way as a small business owner, you know that the country is very volatile, prices can change. It's the same way the people who actually live in the nation also know that, even though sometimes we don't want to accept it, right? We're like always trying to blame the people that own the businesses. But deep down, we know what is going on in the nation. We know that things are very volatile, and we know how prices move, right?
Yeah.
So if a small business owner, for instance, is selling something for 40,000 naira today, and tomorrow they have to sell it for 42,000 naira, even though it's a hard thing to do, generally people understand because it's the nation, right? So there's the common word when you go to the market where you say, well, dollar has increased. That's a common thing even for the layman in the country called Nigeria. So
Yeah.
everybody knows that dollar affects everything. So unfortunately, you might have to make smaller decisions every single time. Where so the challenge with the country or the nation is that where business owners are supposed to be challenging all their energy into trying to develop their business and thinking of other strategies, a lot of small business owners will have to spend time doing all of this small decision making and just burning energy on all of these little things, right? Unfortunately, that's the reality of things on ground, and you can't really just necessarily change it, right? So that's what I would say. I would say, unfortunately, you might have to make smaller decisions. But at the end of the day, it still boils down to how you want to budget things, right? If as a business you are budgeting, but the budget has to be flexible, right? So that's what I'm saying. There's no hard rule to this because it's very unfortunate, but businesses or business owners will have to get it to a point where they can move as fast when it comes to running their numbers, when it comes to budgeting, when it comes to planning, financially planning their stuff, right? They might have to move fast and fast and fast as things move, right? So that's, but you still need to have a foundation. So if you don't have a budget, for instance, you are really not going to know what's going on with your finances at the end of the day. So you can have a budget, but your budget changes, right? You can have a budget that, okay, this is what I want to do. I know this is what I want to do in the next 1 month, 2 months. Yes, markets might change. However, this is with current market, this is what it looks like. And this is what my price should look like. However, if this changes, then also it automatically affects this. Businesses might have to
Okay, so
start
what
thinking
you're
like that.
saying, sorry about that. So what you're saying is whatever happens, as a small business owner, you should have a system
Yes.
that you run
Yeah.
with, and you know that external factors may affect it, but in within your internal factor, understand that there is a solid system that should be in place so that when the external factors come, you don't end up being swept aside.
Yes. And you don't have I am not too stressed about it, right? If you have systems in place, you have structures in place, yes, when something external changes, it just means that what you already have in your system changes along with the external factor. You're not overly thinking about it every time. That weighs you down, sucks all your energy when you're supposed to be developing your product or making services, right? And then you're all about
Yeah.
thinking about this. Once you create the systems in place, once external factor comes in, you are just adjusting your current system. You're just adjusting it to fit what the external factor is now saying, which, again, like I said, people in the nation understand that, right? So nobody can really fault you every time for having to change stuff because of what's happening in the market.
So I have a question on the small businesses. Now,
Okay.
knowing the situation of things now and knowing that you are supposed to be very realistic. No delulu, no delulu. What's that word? Don't live in the fantasy land. Be very realistic. Understand that Nigeria is volatile and you have to think twice as fast and move twice as fast. Should we be more concerned about surviving than thriving?
Yeah, that question is a two-edged sword. Because yes, because at the end of the day, right? Um, okay, so let me put it like this. Like someone said, life is lived forward, but understood backwards. So life is lived
Mm,
forward, but understood backward. Essentially, what that means is like many times you have to look at the history of things to really
mm.
know what the future is going to look like, right? Your question is about survival and rather than thriving and all of that, right? But number one, when you understand the history and you know that, okay, look at the last, let's say decade, how have things progressed, right? What is the hope? Even though we have hope, we have faith, we trust that things would look better. You cannot live your life based off of that information, that idea that, well, the future is going to be bright, so therefore I'm not going to plan for today. That's
Mm.
that's a very foolish way of thinking, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
many times with business owners, right? And this is going to differ because you have some small business owners who have done very well in actually planning very well. Like they have a very good solid foundation when it comes to their finances, right? And you have
Mm-hmm.
other business owners who are just riding it as it goes. Those two businesses are going to operate differently when it comes to an economic downturn. For instance, generally as an individual, right? There's a typical rule, like financial rule, where it's like you should always have like 3 to 6 months worth of emergency fund, right? So your worth of your expenses, you should have that. Just because if something were to happen to you as an individual, like if you lost your job or whatever that is, you can still survive for the next 3 to 6 months. That's a rule that is very nice for you and very good for you as an individual to live by. The
True.
question comes as a small business owner, do you have an emergency fund? If something were to happen today that took away that current revenue that you have, are you going to be able to survive? Because you literally have no income coming in, right? So, as a business owner, if you don't have that in place, unfortunately, you might have to switch to survival mode when things change, right? When if you cannot really thrive and you just have to, at least you have to make money to eat, essentially, right? Because of course you have to put roof over your head, you have to buy food and all of those things, right? Like the basic things of life, essentially, you need those things regardless, and it's from your business that you are making money to be able to do those things. So if it becomes a time when there's now low economic activity or no economic activity, at that point, all you are thinking about is I must be able to eat. So
True.
at that point, you unfortunately have to go into survival mode, right? And your instinct kicks in at that point, really. So you can't really thriving. Now we'll get into the thriving part. I mean, maybe other questions, right? But of course, because businesses
Yeah.
can, there are other things to do to thrive and all of that. But again, if you don't have the structure in place, if you don't have the foundation and the pillar you're resting on from your small business perspective, it's going to be hard to want to make certain decisions that can likely help you thrive, because
Mm.
there's going to be fear that will come in that if you are not able to do that, then you might even become worse for it. So there's a
Mm.
thin line between just staying alive, essentially, right? And trying to thrive, like even though the economy is down. Because at the end of the day, when the economy is down, is when some people become rich.
True.
We can't fault that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, a lot of people will tell you in the stock market that, when the economy is down, that's when you need to go and buy, which is a rule, right? Because a lot of people naturally, psychologically, don't think of thriving in a low economy.
Mm.
Everybody typically thinks of surviving. Look at COVID, for instance, right? Everybody just wanted to live. That was everybody's thought process. I just want to live. Nobody is thinking of other things at that point. But the unique people who are able to now think out of the box at that time are the ones that now make the money, right? So
Yeah.
for a business in that perspective, yes, they might have to do go on just survival mode and make sure that the business actually can just live, right? I mean, you don't want the business to die, because during COVID, a lot of businesses like went away, right?
True.
But yeah, but COVID
Yeah.
was also a unique time, right?
But
So, but yeah,
also,
that would be how I'll deal with that one. Yes.
okay, so you mentioned something about emergency funds.
Why are you laughing?
I'm happy. I'm happy because even on personal basis, what I know, most people don't have emergency fund. Talk less of as a business, which is new. It's actually news to me. I never actually really thought about, okay, have emergency fund as a business. But a thought came to my mind, which is if you're in such a situation where you cannot have emergency funds, is it possible to have emergency ideas? Hear me out.
No, of
Hear me
course. Go
out.
ahead.
So you have to get to some point of convenience to say I want to start putting aside emergency fund, I believe. But in such situations where you've not gotten there and you're already in the pool of downturn, So it's not even, yes, it takes a few that would think thriving, but at this point, you're thinking, I have to survive. I
Mm-hmm.
have to survive. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't even, you're not even thinking emergency fund. But
Yeah.
with survival, because they say imagination and dream is free of charge. Is it possible that an option it's true, an option could be where you can actually tax your brain on knowing, okay, if this doesn't work, this is something else I could do, or this is something else I can be doing right now at the side to also get in these emergency funds or even funds at all.
Okay. Okay. So that question is we can break it out in different ways, and I'll just have a conversation about it, and then you can always ask me other questions based off of it. So there's multiple ways I can look at that, really. Emergency ideas and all of those things. At the end of the day, it boils down to, okay, you are surviving. What generally do you even do, like in a situation whereby you don't have enough money? What are some of the things that you should generally do? You talked about this is something you can do on the side. Yes, there could be a side also that you have to do to make money. You At the end of the day, you have to make money. Even if you have an emergency idea, let's say you have a nice idea out there. Unfortunately, now we're in a low economy. You have to fund that idea. But don't forget,
Sure.
you as a business, you are trying to even survive. So, like that's why I said, if you if you don't have the foundations already on ground, it's going to be harder for you to want to take those kind of decisions, because it becomes a decision whereby if you don't do it well, you become worse for it. So imagine if you took the money that you were going to use to survive your business currently right now, you took that to want to run a new idea, and that fails, you become worse for it, because now the previous business, you unfortunately now can't survive anymore because you took out the proceeds of that one and now you're using it for something else, right? So
Mm.
it has to be done smartly, and that's why I said the foundation is very important at the end of the day. Now, the question, I can still break the question into this other angle of, okay, yes, you talked about emergency idea, but how can we change that around? So the question is, even during a downturn, right? There's two things that people generally think of as an individual, family, or business. It's either you increase your expenditure, your income, rather, increase your income,
Um,
or you reduce
reduce
your
expenditure.
expenses, right? Your expenditure. Those are the two ways. And generally, people want to, like you said, right now, people want to increase. Can I look for a side hustle? Can I do this? Can I do that? Generally, people don't look at how can I reduce, right? And there's definitely multiple ways that you can reduce. There's something I'm always curious about, where even the large organizations in the world, for instance, during an economic downturn, right? Um, Even though you know the kind of profit margin they are making, you know the kind of stupid money these guys are making every year, right? That they've been making for maybe say 10 years, right? Before the economic
Yeah.
downturn. And then an economic downturn, and these guys are many times, they're always the first people to lay people
So
off.
that's one. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yes, right? These are the guys that are making stupid money. Oh. They don't
Mm.
see at the end of the day, businesses are not done for to do emotional support for people. Businesses are done to make profit at the end of the day. If you're not running a charity organization, or if you are doing a
Yeah.
business, you are doing it for your own reasons, your own selfish reasons, I must say. You want to make money, you want to make profit. You are offering a product, you are offering a service in exchange for money. And that's what it is. Value in exchange for money. That's the way money comes. That's the way income comes in,
Yeah.
right? So at the end of the day, if you as a small business owner, you're not thinking, which is why I talked about the delayed decisions. Because if as a small owner, in an economic downturn, you have two staffs, for instance, unfortunately, unfortunately, you might have to make the tough decisions of letting go of someone who you don't really need. Because at the end of the day, in a low economy, you as the CEO, you are no longer a CEO, because if you snap your finger, you might become the CEO of nothing. So
Sure.
if you don't take charge of, even if you have to be the one that is now doing the admin work, maybe you had an admin person that was helping you to do work. Unfortunately, right now is not the time. You need to take on that admin work and add more things, right? You have to now start using time to get money, to get value, right? So at the end of the day, small businesses will still have to make decisions of making tough decisions, like generally, right? So if you have to lay someone off, unfortunately you have to do it to keep your business surviving. Except if you don't do that, and if you don't make other kind of tough decisions, your business might get wiped off, right? So reducing expenses is one major part of it. Increase income. Let's talk about that a little bit. So how can you increase income sometimes, which is what you're talking about, the emergency ideas. What can you do on the side? Now, what I would say, what I would probably say about that one is the next level of your product or your service is actually within that service itself. So just general idea, like the way we always say, for you to get a furniture, or you to get a table or a chair, it's already locked up inside the tree in the forest. So
Yeah.
someone has to take that tree, lumber, get lumber out of it, get everything, and then make it into a furniture. So, but that furniture was already living inside that tree. All it took was somebody to think and extract the furniture out of the tree. So the next level of your product, the next level of where your product is supposed to be, is actually locked up inside that product. Another example, iPhone 14, iPhone 11. When they were going to do iPhone 14 from iPhone 13, when they brought out iPhone 13, it was the shining object, right? Everybody was like, yes, this is the new iPhone. But the iPhone 14 was already inside the iPhone 13.
True.
The next level of the product was already inside of it, and they brought out iPhone 14 from that previous one. So the same thing applies across, right, with your product and all of these things. So small businesses now start to thinking of, okay, what is the next thing I can do from this product? This product as it is, what can I extract from it that can also give me money? And I'll give you examples. So, for instance, you can look at a car, for instance, someone who sells cars, and say, okay, many times you have a customer that comes to you, right? So if I were to break it out, I would say you have to come up with a new product for your existing customers. So you have customers today, you have a customer database, right? But let's say that you are selling a car, for instance. They come to buy a car from you. They buy a car one time and they go. They might not need to buy a car again for the next 3 years.
Sure.
Yes, but that guy is your customer, actually, right? Because he came to buy from you. There's a trust that has been built already with you. There's a familiarity that now the person has with you. The question that you now have to think as a business owner is, okay, now I have sold a car to this person. I collected money from him or her. How can I collect more money based off of that product, that car? So do I need to offer the person to say, hey, you know what? You can actually do your car wash with us at a discounted price. You can do your servicing with us. I can also sell you tires. Now you are marketing other products from this one product, right? You are offering other services that you can do on that one product that is your main product. You are
Yeah.
having all these other services around it, right? That you can now use to extract money from the person. That's one. Okay, let's use crafts, right? Like you're making shoes, for instance.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is a thing, right? But you sell someone a shoe today, the person is your customer. Well, unfortunately, the person might not need the shoe again for a couple many months. But is there something that you can now take out of it to say, you know what? Every 6 months, I also do this, or I don't know what I don't know if it's a thing, shoe revamp. Like a shoe revamp where it elongates like the lifespan, it makes the shoe look very still new. And I will do it at a discounted price, for you, where the person now look at, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I will just bring the shoe back to you after 6 months of wearing it, and then you can revamp it again for a very small price, and then I take the shoe back. Now you are making extra money from that person, even though you sold the person just shoe. It's the same thing that happens with wigs, right? People that make wigs, for instance, right? Where they can now offer like a wig revamp, right? Say if you want the wig for 10 times, you can bring it back and I will revamp it for a little fee. That's money. That's money you are getting back. So the product at the end of the day, you have to look at how you can market other things to those customers you already have, because that's one way that you can now grow and get extra money. The other way is you have to now look for ways to move your product to other new customers, right? So it's either you market other products to your existing customers, or you take your product to other new customers by social media, referrals and all of those things. Like for instance, referrals. Someone can buy a shoe from you, and then you tell the person, okay, if you bring somebody to buy a shoe from me, if you want to buy another shoe, I will give you 25% off. Now, sometimes people might not be able to look at it from the angle of, how will I want to give 25% off? And I'm not, that's just a number, just a random number I'm giving to make an example. But it's the psychology behind it. And you have to create win-win situations between yourself and your customers at the end of the day. So number one, this person already bought a shoe with you. They have no reason to come back to you to buy another shoe. You've collected your money, provided a service to them, a product to them, and they've gone. There's no need for them to come back to you. The question is, how do you want to hook them back? So if I offer them a referral and say, hey, if you bring me a referral, I'll give you 25% on the next shoe you buy with me. Now, I have said something, sown a seed that will make them want to come back to me. That's number one. Number two is, now they know that, or that I just tell my friend to come and buy a shoe with you, I will get 25% off. So I'll be buying the shoe at a lower price, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does that mean? That means that if this person was going to naturally want to buy another shoe from you generally, maybe in 12 months, in another 12 months, because of that statement you've made and that offer you've now given, that new service that you're giving of referral, and then I get you 25% off. And sometimes you can even put a timeline to it to say, hey, if you can bring this person within the next 4 months, right? But that person now, instead of waiting for 12 months to buy another shoe, because he knows that I only need, instead of 40,000 naira to buy a shoe, I only need 30,000 naira. Oh, in 7 months, I already have 30,000 naira. Let me go and buy another shoe. Instead of waiting generally till 12 months that it will have come naturally to want to buy another shoe or something like that, right? So it's just thinking of different ways that you can move the product for that existing customer and make other services around it that can make them come back and give you more money, right? That's how you also grow your income, right? In the sense of it.
That's very insightful. Thank you so much for that. So let's quickly get to the idea of budgeting. As a business, how do we budget? How do we go about it?
So yeah, so the question, I mean, if you look at it from many of these principles are what you would take from as an individual at the end of the day, and you're applying it, right? Of course, with some little caveats here and there. Budgeting generally, like from an individual perspective, is you take how much is coming into your accounts and how much is going out, and you are putting that in front of yourself, but you are doing it proactively to say it's not when money lands into my account that I will start spending it. I am already spending the money before it comes in. Now, of course, as an individual, sometimes it's easier because you can know what your salary is every month, right? And then you can plan with that. As a small business owner that is relying on people coming in, sometimes it's very hard to make that decision. So the question now is, how do I know even how much I'm supposed to plan with, right?
Yeah.
And typically a good way to do that is, I mean, there's multiple ways you can do it, but you can either just take like your lowest, say for instance, in a month, you have like over a span of your last 12 months, right? You can look at your last 12 months and say, okay, what is the least amount income that I made in a month?
Yeah.
And use that as your baseline, right? You can use that as a baseline to say, okay, I expect that if nothing changes, this should be what I should get because that's the least I have made in the last 12 months, right? So if you use that as a baseline, you can use that to calculate, okay, and use that to actually plan. Of course, things might now change where more income comes in. But don't forget that with a budget, you are highlighting multiple things. You are highlighting your savings, you are highlighting all the expenses you need to make for the next month, things like that. So when extra money comes in, so for instance, give you an example, like in developed world, right? Many times when people receive like a raise in salary, once people get that letter that says, oh, now you have they've increased your money by this, what a lot of people do is they go into a car dealer shop and they get a new car. Because
Interesting.
yes. So because that increase is a facade for them, right? It's like, oh, now I have more money. But what they do is now they are still in the same position, or sometimes even worse. Because even though with the increase, they go get a car, now they are paying more every month and all of that. Now they have another expense that they've added on top of that new extra income that was coming in, right? As a business, so if you are basing it off the lowest spectrum of income that you've gotten in the last 12 months, then what it means is that if you get an extra money, where does that go to? You should already have a line item for savings in there, right? generally. So what it just does is that money goes back into your savings, right? And whatever you've already highlighted that you want to use that savings for, right? Let's say you want to use it to expand the business or whatever that is, that extra income goes in there. But you have planned based off of that last, the least income, right? And you can do it that way, or you can decide to take an average between the last 12 months and divide it and say, okay, this is an average amount, and then use that to plan. But for me, generally, I would prefer that previous idea of using the least amount that you've gotten in 12 months, because that tells you that, okay, at least in 12 months, this is the least I've gotten, which means that I should at least be able to meet this target, right? It
Yeah.
becomes an easier goal. It becomes an easier goal to work with. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes, it does. It basically answers how to start with the budgeting. But I would like to know how to do it effectively, because remember we've spoken sometime about hi Tammy. Okay, now I'm struck. Okay, so you know that some time ago we spoke about budgeting personally, and you opened up a few channels that we never thought about. Because you know, when you're starting with budgeting, you just think of budgeting income expenses, but you went ahead to speak more on tagging the budgeting, checking out what the budget. Thank you, Tammy. Checking out what exactly you want to use your budget for, and stuff like that. I would like you to speak on that, because in as much as it may seem like budgeting is a common knowledge, but I like to say common sense is not necessarily common. It's just common to you because you've been in that environment. So I would like you to speak on that budgeting. In terms of business, what do you think we should do apart from just income expenses? What is the deeper root of that budgeting?
Yeah. So I mean, typically, we like to keep budgeting on at the simplest form, right? Because a lot of people don't budget. So if you try to make it too complicated, it just becomes, people would just rather not do it, right? So that's why many times you find people will just say, hey, at least, because the idea is once you start budgeting and you start seeing the rewards, then you can now start deciding to take it however you want to take it, right? But generally, anyways, I'm just trying to use myself as an example now. So for instance, if I'm budgeting for like a business, or I'm budgeting for like something that I'm doing, like an investment or whatever that is, right? The general income expenses is still important. Like you can't take that away from budgeting. Like you need that, because that's where you actually see where you're spending money, where your money is
Yeah.
going to, and then what your actual savings is. So, for instance, for me, because I'm in an economy that is able to, you're able to project what you're going to be earning for like the whole year. There's nothing like there's no change and all of that. From the beginning of the year, I'm able to like decide how much I'm going to save for the whole year, right?
Yeah.
I can look at it and say, okay, with my current income, my current salary, and all of that, that I know whether they promote me this year or they don't promote this year is not my business,
Mhm.
right? If they do that, that's great, because I know where that extra money is going to. It's not going to the car dealer, but it's going into what already on ground, right? So I'm planning based off that to say, you know what, I need to know how much all of this is, because I have this other business that I'm trying to push money into and invest in and all of those things, right? So coming up with that savings, I'm able to now make a plan, right? To say, okay, I have all of these savings that I'm sure that I'm going to be able to at least do this every month. This is what I'm going to be able to save every month. And then I also have all the projects that I want to do for the year, essentially, right? And based off of the savings, I can see if my projects are already more than what my savings is going to look like, or if it's going to be, less, right? So for me, once I put in all my expenses and all of that, and I have the bucket that has my savings and that piece, right? I can now know what I want to do for the business. So you say, for instance, let's assume it's real estate investing, for instance, right? And I know that, okay, I'm going to be able to save this certain amount, X. I can know that, okay, by this month, this is what this business that I have should be able to make an investment in based off of this money that would have come in, right? So there's the regular income expenses, but there's now that extra part where you now start looking into the future part of, okay, how do you want to move? Because savings at the end of the day is not supposed to just sit in your account. When you are saving, it's not just supposed to be there, right? Once you have your emergency fund, like I said before, which is supposed to help you during the times when things are rough,
Yeah,
whether as an
times, yeah.
individual or as a business, right? Individual or business. Once you have that in place, the question is every other money that comes in, what are you doing with it? If
Mm.
you don't have it, if you don't have a plan for it, it will have a plan for itself. Don't forget the first statement I made at the beginning. If you fail to manage money, right, to learn how to manage money, right, the lack of it will manage you. So if you don't learn how to manage that money, those savings, and you just other things, I mean, you're in Nigeria, for crying out loud, things will come up. It could be any
Money
other.
that Naira actually devalues.
Yes,
True.
exactly, and the money devalues too, right? Like you said, yeah, very correct. So that's where people now have to now start thinking, and businesses have to start thinking of, okay, the future part, which is where I'm talking about. I was talking about those ideas of, what exactly is inside your product that can become a service, right? That's when you can now start making some of those nice ideas that you were talking about, that you can now start funding it, right?
Mm.
But that means that you already have the foundation in place. Now you have budgeting for your business, you have emergency fund for your business, you have a very good foundation. Now you are more confident as a small business owner to start making some certain decisions, because you know that even if you make that decision and it didn't pan out the way you wanted it, your current business is not going to just sit down and just going to crash. Unlike
Mm.
someone who doesn't have the current foundation, like I'm talking about, and just decides
Yeah.
to take all the proceeds from the business and go and use it to try something else. If they fail at it,
Mm.
that's the end of both that one
Mm.
and their current business,
Mm.
right? Yeah, so
That
that's
that's
kind of your bits,
that's
yeah.
actually that's so good. That's so good because speaking of foundation, it's very necessary to note that foundation sometimes is not as deep as it may sound.
Yep.
It's actually quite simple because earlier I used to think that structure was something like structure was actually a complaint. Like you have to like you enter inside a building and then you see the accountant, you see I used to think I'm just being vulnerable here. I used to think that that was what structure meant. But I later realized that structure is actually as simple as having a business plan, which may not necessarily be as simple as it sounds, but it's simple if you can get into it. So one of the things I've been doing of late is working on my business plan and basically trying to see the business as it should. Because sometimes, especially in Nigeria, you just delve into entrepreneurship. You don't really know what it's all about. You just do it because maybe there's no government, provide job or something, and then you delve into it,
Mhm.
and you now find out that well, it's not as it's supposed to be. But I realize also that a lot of people do not have this foundation, especially the small businesses in Nigeria. And in my research, I also found out that every 2 years over 1 million SMEs die.
Hmm.
Like in Nigeria alone, I'm not even talking Africa. We
Wow.
we start business and finish and end business over and over and over.
Yes.
This is even before the economic downturn thingy. So now that we are in this situation where we have to budget, I just need to put it out there for people that first of all, you need to understand what your business is all about. You see that business plan, take time out. If you have to take like 2 weeks, which may not be enough, necessarily enough for it, but takes time out to think about what exactly do I want this business to solve?
Mhm.
What exactly is my market? What's my target market? Who are they? Where are they? Who am I? Because not the people that you think are your competitors may not necessarily be your competitors. So you have to really understand who are my competitors in this industry and how do I now get money from my target market? Because you have to know who they are, you have to know where they are, you have to know how to find them. Because there is something I learned today about early adopters, and I also learned that in those early adopters there are those that actually need your solution, are searching for that solution. So there are those that need your solution but are not necessarily searching for it. So you may have to explain to them. But there are those that they are searching for it. So in other words, those competitors, they've gone to meet them. They have challenges about the solution they've given to them. Those are people that you can go and meet. You can reach out to. Where are they? So that you can actually sell to them. It helps to be faster in your strategy, and it also helps you to strategize better even in the economic downturn.
Right.
I like when you mentioned about projects, which is one of the things I also want to talk about in terms of the budgeting. Now, project is very important, but you cannot be thinking of projects if you've not even checked what your you don't even know where it's going. You've not even foreseen the you've not even foreseen the future. You don't even know anything. Like it's just weird. So it's just something that you have to like. That foundation. I'm sorry to state this, but I'm not sorry. Also, the Bible states that when the foundation is destroyed, what can the people do? Like
They
you
can
have to
pray.
actually. They can pray, but it will shock you. How long Nigerians have been praying. You will
I'm
just
just
pray,
joking.
not sleep. So it's just something that we have to look into. We have to be very serious about our foundation. And I think it's one of the issues with Nigerians. That's why we are peculiar. Even the government, we don't really check out the future. We don't really know. We're not so invested into sowing a seed today to actually reap it tomorrow. We want today, 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 now, 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 which makes me come back to your statement that says about the today versus the future. Sometimes you have to get into delayed gratification. The things
Oh
that you
yeah.
want to get today, you may not need to get it today. So I'm just going to ask the next questions, which is let's get into let's get into investments now. Well, because there are opportunities out there, whether we like it or not, there are opportunities out there. So, what are the opportunities that might exist for small businesses or businesses in general and individuals during an economic downturn that are often overlooked?
Okay. So I mean that's an interesting question because that's very very dependent on location as well sometimes. Um, because I'm looking at it from a small business perspective, right? In Nigeria,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, so I mean, in terms of the investment, as a business itself, like which essentially at the end of the day, the question I would want to ask that small business owner back is: Are you trying to invest in yourself, or you are trying to invest in somebody else's business? Because if you're a small
mm,
business owner, it means that you could become a medium-sized business owner, and you could also become a large-sized
that's
business owner.
true.
Right?
Mm,
So, as a small business owner, at least from the idea I have of what a lot of the small businesses do, right? Many times it's to sell a product or do a service again to for themselves. I mean, that's their daily bread essentially, right? So if you have some sort of chunk of money somewhere, the question then becomes, do you really want to take that money and go and invest it somewhere else? Or you actually want to invest it in your business? Again, looking at it from an angle of where you have a foundation, a good foundation where you have a business plan. So if you have a business plan, even as a small business owner, I want to assume that in the business plan, there's provision for growth, there's provisions for scalability within that business plan.
true.
So if you're selling a product within your immediate environment, the question comes to again, don't forget, there's two ways you can grow as a business. It's either you take the product you're already using with your current customers and you make something out of it, right? And then you give it to the same customers, or you actually take that product to new customers totally. Now, when you talk about new customers, the sky is your limit when it comes to new customers, right? So if you're only as a small business, you're dealing with your small environment and you have some money that you want to invest. The question is, wouldn't it be better for you to take that money and invest in expanding your business to now reach more people outside of your immediate environment? Because at the end of the day, the reason why you're investing is because you want to make more money.
True.
So why would a small business owner not think of making more money out of their own business by scaling their business?
Mm,
Now, that will be my question back. I mean, I can try to answer the question back, but I'm just putting that question back there because for me, that's the only reasonable thing to do. Like, if he's a small business owner, right? Like, you're not talking about a very large scale business that is trying to now invest in other small businesses or trying to invest in startups and things like that. You, as a
yeah.
small business, you are even a startup. You are a startup, essentially, right? So
Mhm.
the question is, how do you want to scale? That's the only way I can see the investment, like where it makes sense for a small business owner. A large business can decide to invest in other markets, other
Yeah.
things, because they have that kind of credibility and all of those things, right? But for a small business owner, you want to gain credibility, you want to be able to expand your business to make more money. The more customers you can reach, the more money that comes back to your business. So
Mm.
that's where it makes sense to invest. Invest back in yourself and in your actual business to get reach to the larger community, because that would eventually bring back the money to you. And then from a small business, you can grow to a medium sized business and, of course, like a large business, right?
I like I like where you said invest in yourself and your business, because those are two separate things, and one affects the other, especially as a small business owner. In some sort of way, your business can only go as far as you as the owner can see. So you may have to invest more in yourself so that your business will be grateful for it later in the future. So I think it's also brings me back to this development thing, this personal development that I was talking about earlier. As business owners, we need to understand that we need to invest in ourselves, build your mind. Where you're coming from can be an excuse for starting, but it shouldn't be an excuse for continuing and growing. You can't stay in a sport and start saying because I started like this. No, you've started. That's why you started small, but you have to stay small. Vusi used to say something. Vusi would say that in Africa, one of the challenges we have is starting small and remaining small. We always think small business. We always think small business. We don't think global. We don't think, oh, I want to start a business and I want to. We don't think like that. And I feel like, yeah, that's one person's opinion based on the reality, but you can change yours as personal as it may be. You can look within yourself and decide that, you know what, I'm going to actually build myself and prove that I can become something better. I can build something better. So I like that you mentioned about investment. And investment is not necessarily monetary. It's sometimes it's time consuming, that is sure. Very time consuming, but it's not necessarily financially consuming. There are some investment that you have to, it has to be financial, but not most of it is not financially consuming. So
Yeah,
please go out
it could be it
and
could be education
invest.
as well, right? It could also just be education of time, like you said, right? So time, which equals to you educating yourself to be able to make certain better decisions for the business, right? Which
Yes.
is that's also part of the investment. But I assume that you're talking about actual, financial investments, in terms of, again, bringing back profits to the business. So for me, if you want to get more profits, get your product out to more customers. And that's what it is. And then you get more money from other customers,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, you're right on that. You're right, you're very right on that. But you have to also understand that the reason we are limited in the customers we have reached is because we really do not know better in how to reach more customers. So you still have to invest in yourself, not just necessarily time. Because most times when you ask SMEs, what's your problem? They tell you capital.
Mm,
The first answer is always capital. But do you know how false this can be? Like, is it really capital? So if I give you capital, or
exactly.
you know how you would know? You ask them, how much capital do you need? That's
Mm,
usually the problem.
they don't
Because
know, right?
exactly, they're like, just give me big money, Sha, big money. Okay, so what is big money? What is big money? So these are the issues. These are it's fun, but it's the truth. So I'm also speaking from experience, because this is something that I've been through, and it's something that I have learned not to get into anymore. So it's a place of growth. Make your mistakes, but please grow fast and develop
Yeah.
yourself. So I'm going to ask you the last question because of time.
Okay.
And that would be okay. Are there any government programs, financial institution that provide support for small businesses during economic downturn?
Yeah. So in Nigeria, I don't know, I think I saw someone sending a smiley. laughing smiley. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're trying. I don't know if they're trying to shade Nigeria, but anyways, um, so yeah, in Nigeria, like I was going to say, um, I, because I'm not very domiciled in the nation to know what exactly is going on. However, um, there's stuff. I mean, and maybe you will be able to answer that in terms of okay, these are general things I know, right? For instance, I know governments have like grants, to help small businesses. Sometimes there could be like certain tax breaks and all of those things, right? Now, again, I'm saying these things from a developed country perspective. Whether Nigeria is doing it or not, I guess you'll be the best to say. Or if Nigeria has those kind of platforms, right?
Yeah.
But yes, there's those kind of grants and things like that. And then there are loans, right, that small businesses might have access to at a very low interest rates. That is part of the whole program to help small businesses grow. So using all of these things essentially is one way. I mean, from a ideal environment. Now, whether Nigeria government or Nigeria, whatever, you have people, private businesses that help small businesses with loans or grants and things like that at the low interest. Because I know Nigeria, they like loans at high interest, which can eventually kill your business because if you can't pay
Yeah.
the debt back and your interest is just growing, that's not too great, right? So people have to be very smart about it. I know I've heard a lot of people talk about microfinance banks. People go there to get loans. Now, the challenge is I don't know what they're getting in terms of the interest because many times people are not so educated to when it comes to loans, and people just want to go and collect money. And
Yeah.
generally, the banks are always going to, play on your ignorance, and they will just essentially play on your ignorance essentially at the end of the day, right? So everybody's inside of this thing to make money at the end of the day.
True.
So
True.
it's not like they're really helping you per se. Like at the end of the day, the loan is for you to be able to give them more money because they're going to make interest off you and all of those things, right? And if you default, they come for you. That's what it is, right? So yes, so there's those multiple things, right? But from a that's from an ideal situation. Now I don't know if Nigeria particularly has those things, those systems, and those kind of vehicles to help small businesses also in the country and how good it works. So I don't know if you maybe have any insight into that from what some of the things you've
Okay.
done.
So thank you for that. So the thing is, in Nigeria, they actually have such, government as such, but when it comes to loan, of course, when it comes to interest on loans, is very high. Usually about 10 to 15% interest on your loan. So it's not necessarily advisable for small businesses to start taking out loans, though that also depends on what you want to use the loan for. So of course you have to know what you want to use the money for. So if the money is something that will bring back a high return and on time, you can always go for loans. But I am a preacher of grants. I've collected loan before, but of course it's personal. It was a personal loan, not government loan. But for grants, it's more of foreigners that invest in small businesses.
Yeah.
There's one government grant that is present, that is still running, I believe. NYIF, you can go check it out. Is something that is still running. They will ask you about clusters and some weird things, but you can answer it. It's very simple and straight to the point. And for grants, it's online. You can always get grants. And if you can't get them quickly online, you can always have yourself join groups that share grants information. For me, I'm in an academy, Biz Grants Academy. I'm sure there are other grant academies out there where they share grant information and deadlines on grants and even help out on what grants and how to apply for these grants. So you can always,
Mhm.
and it's not expensive, you can always join into those kind of grants. But if you can't do grants, please note that to actually apply for grants, you need to do your foundation. You need to have business plan.
Nobody's going to give you money on a business that doesn't
Nobody.
have
Exactly.
any prospects, right? Or anything like that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So you will need to do business plan. You will need to be able to pitch your business to a stranger in
Mhm.
a very short time and and let them understand what the business is about. So sometimes they don't even ask you for business plan upfront. They just ask you to pitch your business 5 minutes, 2 minutes sometimes, and you have to
Mm.
state the important things, and that's how they would actually know whether you're ready or not. So it takes a lot, and sometimes you have to go through training. So you go to training before you even know whether you are chosen or not. So there's also that.
Wow.
So there are different this now I did that of recent, which the one I went through training. I did about 4 months training.
Mm.
um yeah, so it's time consuming. These things are time consuming. It doesn't fall from the sky. But this is one thing that we need, exactly, this is one thing we should note, which is whatever is worth getting is worth pursuing.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Dropping gems.
So yeah, whatever is worth getting is worth pursuing. So you have to understand, okay, this thing I want to get, what is the price I need to pay for it? This I need to manage money, but I need to get money to manage money. This money I want to get, what is the price? Because sometimes we just want to sleep and wake up and see money on the streets. It doesn't work like that.
Mm.
It's sometimes you'll be doing the same thing, or rather the same thing in different ways for about 5 6 years before you get that money that seems so close. So it takes time. It's not a promise of, oh, you will get it as soon as. No, it doesn't happen like that. You may get 10 no's before you get one yes. You may get 15 no's before you even get maybe. So there are things like that. I like that you spoke on the government thingy. It's sadly our government is not the best. They are trying their best, but they are not the best. So we have to face the reality, and the reality is you have to understand your economy. You have to understand that it's volatile. You have to understand that it's not, you may not be able to use textbook knowledge for what is happening. So you may
Yeah.
have to dive into the ocean to know whether you will drown or not.
Yeah.
But at least wear your swimsuit, wear the the water saver, what's it
Safety guard
called,
and all
before
that.
you dive in. Get the
Yeah.
foundation on before you dive
Yeah.
in. And failure is not the worst of it. Failure is a lesson. You can always learn one or two things from failing and move forward. If you have a bad idea right now, you can always change your idea. There's
Yeah.
nobody's going to catch you for that. So that's it. I am
Yeah.
so grateful for the our time is fast spent. So I
Mm.
would just like you to give our see what we are saying. So so I just like you to give our people one advice, basically one piece of advice for small business owners to survive an economic downturn.
Yeah. I would probably just say, you know what, uh, let there be a consistent review of, your business processes, your financial statements and all of that piece, right? Like, because at the end of the day, you never really know what you are spending on. For instance, I'm looking at this from a perspective of where, the business in Nigeria right now, the person is just at least doing the business. There's really no any plan in place or anything like that, even though you have rightly said that, people need to look into these things and create good foundations. But let's talk about it. A lot of people probably don't have foundations, right? So how can you at least help yourself in the moment? Um, it's to make sure that you are doing consistent reviews of your business processes and your financial statements, right? Let it not just be that you are money just coming in and money just going out. At least do a review of it so that you can actually pinpoint where things are going to, that that money can actually, I can take some money out of here instead of these things that we're spending on. Maybe there's a better way to do it, because if you don't review, there's no way you're going to know what to do better, right? So when you review, then you know what you can do better. That would be one quick advice I would say, okay, for someone to quickly do, right? I mean, in the interim, while they develop some of their foundational pieces in place.
Okay, so I see that somebody has a question. So before he asks his question, please just type your question and we'll take it. Before he asks the question, let me quickly ask on that review. Can you explain a bit more on the review? Like, are you saying review of our income or a review of our sales, or what
You know,
exactly?
So it's actually review of your expenses, right? You
Mhm.
know, now again, so you're talking from the perspective of where okay, you've started working on your foundation and you have some foundation in place and all of those pieces, right?
Yeah.
So there are certain things that you won't do, for instance, right? Like if I wanted to buy a product from you, for instance, even though I have your personal account, you probably tell me, hey, don't send that money to my personal account, send it to my business account. Or if I wanted to send you some money just as a gift, you say, don't send it to my business account, send it to my personal account. Some
Account, yeah.
people some people don't operate that way. Some people operate as accounts, right? So there's inflow,
Yeah.
there's outflow. There's really no way for them to define it, right? So
Mhm.
that's why that's why I now talk about the review
Mhm.
because then you if you don't look at it, you are just going to be spending money. And it's the same
Mhm.
way that happens even with an individual, like individual family. If you don't constantly do like some reviews, you wouldn't know that you are spending money on certain things that you'll be like, when you see it, you'll be like, why am I spending money on this? Right? So it's part of financial like health hygiene. That's generally like it's just a health hygiene when it comes to your finances for you to actually look at your statements. And you could take like you might not necessarily do it. I mean, I like to do it way, way more often, but you could just do it maybe once in a month or once in 2 months, right? Just to make sure that you are actually understanding what's going on in your expense, right? Like for instance, like in developed country, like for instance, like you have your statement, sometimes there's a way for it where they map out for you where you can actually see where a lot of your money are going to, right? So if you're buying more um food or you are buying more this, you are buying more that, you are more now, there's a way they have the algorithm, the AI is that the artificial intelligence that helps you kind of map that out to say, hey, you spent 20 kinikon naira more this month on this. So, but if you're never reviewing it, you will never know that you actually did that, and you might have been able to quickly curb some issues, right,
Yeah.
of your financing and just spending by you seeing some of those statements, right? So, but in a country like Nigeria, okay, that's not there. That's fine. Just a regular statement. I mean, I guess opening a business account is a good thing to have, right? Just
Mhm.
open a separate account so that way you know that money that is going in here is your business and it's not mixed with other regular personal things that you want to do and all of those pieces, right? So that's probably what I would say on that, right? It's just a nice hygiene thing to do. Review your statement, look at each of them quickly at a glance, and know that okay, there's no major issues that are in there, right? For instance, like sometimes I mean, where we use credit cards and all of those kind of things, like in developed world countries, like many times some charges might just come out of your card, and a lot of people don't look at their statements for like months, and there's just something that is coming out, right? Recently, I found out that there was a withdrawal that happened on one of my cards because I had subscribed to something, and for the first time ever in my life, I forgot to actually take out my card. I put it there for a trial, for like a 14-day trial, and for the first time, I
Oh,
totally forgot to remove it,
oh,
and they came in and just deducted like a monthly charge that I don't even need to think like that, right?
oh,
So, but
so
oh yeah, right. So,
sadly.
so yes, but because I do reviews, I found it on time, and I had to reach out
Mm.
to the company to say,
Mm.
hey, this was not my intention, blah blah blah. So
Mm.
even though they couldn't refund me back the money, we were able to get to a conclusion of where instead of that charge becoming a monthly charge, a
Yeah,
month to month charge that would have just had access for a month, they gave me
yeah,
a lifetime use for that same charge. So I
yeah.
pretty much have a lifetime access to that
Wow,
platform now. Like I don't have to
wow,
pay any money again.
wow.
But again, so if I didn't review it,
You
I would
wouldn't
not have
know.
even known, and
Yeah,
I would not have known to now talk to them and try to do some negotiation to say, hey, I want my
yeah,
money back, and well, this is what we can offer you, and
true.
so those that same thing that happens even in business as well too. So
Strangely, I actually, this is new to me. I write down my expenses, but I necessarily do not look through my bank statements and just check my expenses and all, which is something I'm going to take on now. It's very, very insightful. Thank you for that. Dolapo is asking a question. He said, what about a situation where an existing business um is having a client they are working for? How will a startup business take over getting the same clients with the same business line? Okay, I will just I first of all like to ask: is this ethical?
What do you mean
Is
is
it
ethical? Are you joking? What? There's no ethics in that. It's pretty much saying that if someone used to buy food in a food with a food vendor, and
yeah,
oh, they already know this food vendor and saying, okay, I should not have my own food business because this person already buys from there. Well, if I do my marketing strategies properly and I do all the things that I regard, like when it comes to business and the initial so the question is, how do people actually come into the market, right?
yeah,
By
yeah,
showing the value that you're going to bring, and people would have to try you out based off of several strategies that you put in place. It could be discounts, it could be you making sure that you do um sometimes depending on what it is, like sometimes like I've seen people who have offered to like just do something for free just so that they can get inside of it, because sometimes when you're outside, people it's very hard for people to want you to come in when they don't know you. They already have someone they're working with, so it's going to take a little bit more creativity rather, to get into that. And when you get in there, make sure to down do a very good job for them to now at least be able to think about it, that okay, should I actually switch or not? Because don't forget, people will always switch. It's my money. If I see
mm-hmm,
value and I see someone giving me more value, I will switch. It's as simple as that.
mm-hmm,
Like there's
mm-hmm.
no hard there's no emotions in there, right? Because it's my money that I'm paying for the product you are giving me.
True,
So so it's sometimes it can be hard, but it's going to take some creativity for that startup business to now start looking at. And of course, it's not as if you have to be very, I mean, the business owner has to be smart, right? No, if you're a small business owner, you're not going to go and try to be tackling like a large scale client who has a large scale business that is already working with them, right? You have to go
yeah,
from the grassroots, and then don't forget the way businesses work is a lot. There's also referrals that come with it, right? So if you do a good job for
true,
somebody, the person is telling somebody
true,
else, right?
true.
And that's how you actually move, right? Otherwise, I mean, there's no other person will be able to start a business because there's no business. I think everybody already has some sort of business that they are doing today that's already servicing some product, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we need more. The sky is the limit, right? There's enough people to service. It's just that the product has to be good enough to be able to take over what somebody else has been doing. Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
So I think what you've said in summary is know your market strategy and work with it. Understand the value that you bring to the table. Sell it to the clients. What this is the value I bring, and then I would like to add everybody every market has a unique selling point. So you could as well also know your unique selling point. What is that value proposition that is unique to you? You can sell that to the client. Hopefully that will be something that that client also needs in addition to the product itself, and that way you get the clients.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Bori, for this. I really appreciate it. So I'm just going to recap on our lessons and would call it a day. So we have learned a lot. I wouldn't say everything I've learned because of time, but you started with the quote, which is learn to manage money or the lack of it will manage you. And there is no truer word than that, because it's like a child. In as much as you know that this is a child, let the two parents die, that child will become an adult. Like when there is no option, you have no option but to go up or to move. So that is just what it is. So learn to manage money. If not, the lack of it will manage you. I like when you also mentioned the thinking of today versus the thinking of the future. It's very important. Think of the both of them, but at the same time, learn the balance of it. You mentioned managing money involves handling finances, investment, budgeting, saving, and setting your financial goals. Strangely, we have covered all of it in this short
yeah,
time.
actually.
Strangely, we didn't plan for that, but strangely we have covered all of it. So please kindly listen again and again and again until you understand how to handle your finances, how to invest, how to budget, how to save. and setting your financial goals and how to do all these things the right way. Mistakes and mindsets that people and small businesses have. You mentioned three. You said you spoke on taking the reality of things. Not taking the reality of things rather as it is. And you mentioned the solution, which is understanding that this is the reality. The Nigeria that you're in is like this. It's not staying in a place. And when you look back 10 years ago and you look back now, you know that it's really not something that may change soon, even though we have hope that it will change. So you have to understand the reality of the market and we are just meeting up the current expectation of the market. I wish we touched on what the market was, but I think I would either I do that as my when I'm doing my YouTube videos, or I bring in a speaker to talk on markets. Oh yes, next month is actually going to be talking about marketing. So yes, that would help in understanding what market is and stuffs like that. So please, the second one is inadequate revenue. Understand that you may not have enough at the moment, but know that it's inadequate. Understand also um that you could have different channels of that revenue. Like, know your reality, work with that reality. Reliance of your known revenue, don't rely so much on one. Have emergency fund. Know that there is more to it. You mentioned a quote which is something about the future of a product. If I remember correctly, the future of a product is in the existing products that you have now. So it's like when the Bible says what is in your hands. Sorry, I'm a Christian, so it's like when the Bible says what is in your hands. So basically the future that you're looking for is in the you of today. So find that out, figure it out. What is it that I can use for the future? So then you mentioned delaying your decision making. Remember that in Nigeria, as volatile as it is, there are some things that you should buy now. Don't wait till tomorrow to buy. And there are some things that you save and know that, okay, I should not do this now. And there are some equipment that it may seem like you need to buy it, but you don't need to buy it. So on this, just look at yourself, because we can't generalize.
Yes.
There are some people that need to buy that equipment. There are some people that need to delay the gratification to buy that equipment. And there are some people that they should not even be thinking equipment at all. They need to shut down their business and
Ah,
do something else. so, so we have to listen to this. You have to listen to this our talk. You have to listen to it in totality to really understand what is the next thing you're supposed to do. You mentioned also on life being lived forward but understood backwards, which I see as having a vision and working backwards to understanding where you are today to get to the vision that you're seeing in the future. So there are steps that you may need to take. And you mentioned something, things about foundation. In fact, you spoke so much about foundation. So I think if there's one thing you need to take out of this talk today is, please go and work on your foundation. You don't have to do so much. You just, the little you can do. From there, take another step. From there, take another step. Just
yeah.
do something, at least do something. So, not to take much of our time, I'm just going to I'm going to move to the last things that we spoke about, which is the marketing strategy based on the question that Dolapo asked. Show the value that you're bringing to the table. I would like to use this quote to end that, which is one quote I always tell myself these days, because I used to be somebody that don't like putting myself out there. And it is simply, if you're winking in the dark, you cannot blame the next person for not seeing that you're winking. Put your products out there. Give them the choice to buy or not to buy.
Mm,
That you put it inside, or you don't say anything about it, you're not loud about it, you don't tell people about it, your neighbor does not even know that you are doing the thing you're doing, and you are saying there's no market. It's your fault. So go, just show up regardless. Show up, start from where you are. Don't stop there, but start from where you are. Show up, show the value, shout the value, scream it, let people know this is the value that I am bringing to the table. So I would like to end with this note, which is to manage your money in an economic downturn, you have to understand the foundation of managing that money in the first place,
Yep.
and now working towards the reality of the present time, even though you have the sight of the future. I hope I summarized it well.
Very well.
If you have any, so please don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to follow this page and follow Monday morning nuggets. Please, Monday morning nuggets. It's very insightful. Just small little tips that will just make you be like, ha, God, where am I today? So just follow and read and think about it. And thank you so much, Airby Kems, for thanking us. Thank you so much. To alert more people of this event, whenever we're live, you can always screenshot, share your lessons on your social media page and platforms. And don't forget to tag Monday Morning Nuggets if you're doing this, and tag us also, Sassy NG. I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Puri, for this. Thank you so much, everyone that joined in. One of my mentors joined today. Like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Like, I couldn't screenshot, but I screen record, so I'll just screenshot from the screen record later. Like, I'm so excited. I'm going to loud it. I'm going to take my advice.
That's great.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do you have
Welcome.
anything you want to say before we say goodbye?
No, I think you've done a very good job with the summarization, right? So I think thank you for the opportunity. Um, I put myself out there majorly from a post perspective, not necessarily from a speaking perspective on this particular subject. So I do
Yeah.
other speaking engagements and other things, but not necessarily. This is probably like my first actual speaking engagement on just talking about financing and all of that, right? I do other ones on other investing, but yeah, so it was great actually chatting and answering some of these your
Would you
many
like to do
questions.
it
And
again?
what do you say?
Would you like to do it again?
I mean, I think it's going to become a thing as we keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah, those questions were very, very interesting. And I mean, looking at Nigeria as a whole, right? It's trying to figure out how to even work within the Nigeria system is a very, very interesting thing already. So I applaud all the small business owners out there already, like doing good work. So it's very good. So yeah, but that'll be my parting words. Is everybody just keep soldiering on. I mean, just soldier on. Things are hopefully going to get better, but regardless of that, make sure that you have your own stuff enrolled in place. Financial planning is very important, and always review your own particular business process and financial plans and all of those things. So definitely with that, I think there's definitely improvements that can be done and growth.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's really an honor to have you here and an honor to actually see you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the insightful session. Take care of
Thank you very much.
yourself. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Till next time, go win some. Take care and bye.